Hello, good afternoon, evening, good morning. Welcome to another video. Uh, I'm going to explain a little bit what the video is going to be about for the people that it doesn't the people that doesn't know what's the video about. As you know, the Bible has many chapters and many Bible verses. Sometimes we don't know the meaning of one Bible verse. That is exactly what what I'm going to be analyzing in the next presentation. One Bible verse and the explanation of the question based on that Bible verse. After that PowerPoint presentation, I will move to my favorite Bible verses that I made research in the Bible about those Bible verses. The questions are in the screen, so you can be guided by what is written in the screen itself. Okay. Next, I'm going to be analyzing some parts of how it is supposed to be a good preacher of the good news. Then I would be analyzing a book. This book is titled, the title of the book is in the screen as well. I will be guiding you through the development of the video. So let's start. I'm going to explain while I develop. For example, this part of the video is called Treasures from God's Word. What is the meaning of the word treasures? Treasures is something that you need to make a special effort to find the answer. In this case, I'm going to be focusing on Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 19. That is a spiritual gem. So read with me, please, Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 19. In that Bible verse precisely, I'm going to be answering the following question. Why was the local court situated at the gate of a city? So let's read Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 19. It says, 21:19, his father and his mother must also take hold of him and bring him out to the older men of his city and to the gate of his place. Okay, after reading this Bible verse, we will be answering the question that is in the screen. Why was the local court situated at the gate of a city? So in order to answer this question, I need to look to a special book. The special book is It 1, page 516 to 590, under the subtitle Court Judicial. Now, if you want to have access to this book, just let me know in the comments so I can provide you with the correct way how to access it. But let's analyze what it is written here. God, as the creator of the universe, has the supreme sovereignty as acknowledged by the ancient nation of Israel. And to support this sentence that I have just read, we have Isaiah chapter 33, verse 22. Let's see what it has to say. It says, for Jehovah is our judge. Jehovah is our statute giver. Jehovah is our King. He himself will save us. And we have Isaiah chapter 43, verse 9 to 12. It says, let the nations all be collected together at one place, and let national groups be gathered together. Who is there among them that can tell this? Or can they cause us to hear even the first things? Let them furnish their witnesses, that they may be declared righteous. Or let them hear and say, it is the truth. You are my witnesses, is the utterance of Jehovah, even my servant whom I have chosen, in order that you may know and have faith in me, and that you may understand that I am the same one. Before me there was no God formed, and after me there continued to be none. I am Jehovah, and besides me there is no Savior. I myself have told forth and have saved and have caused it to be heard, when there was among you no strange God. So you are my witness, and is the utterance of Jehovah, and I am God. So we've got the answer to the question at the top of the page. We've got the answer in this book under this sentence. And the Bible verses there are to support the idea of the sentence. Patriarchal society. Noah received basic laws in addition to what God had stated previously. As patriarch, Noah made decisions that affected only his immediate household, but also his married sons and seed. So to support that idea again, we have Genesis chapter 9, verse 3 to 6. It says, every moving animal that is alive may serve as food for you. As in the case of green vegetation, I do give it all to you. Only flesh with its soul, its blood, you must not eat. And besides that, your blood of your souls shall I ask back. From the hand of every living creature shall I ask it back. And from the hand of a man, from the hand of each one who is his brother, shall I ask back the soul of man. Anyone shedding man's blood, by man will his own blood be shed. For in God's image he made man. Okay, and the last Bible verse, Genesis chapter 9, verse 20 to 27. It says, now Noah started off as a farmer and proceeded to plant a vineyard. And he began drinking of the wine and became intoxicated. And so he uncovered himself in the midst of his tent. Later, Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and went telling it to his two brothers outside. At that, Shem and Japheth took a mantle and put it upon both their shoulders and walked in backwards. Thus they covered their father's nakedness, while their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. Finally, Noah awoke from his wine and got to know what his youngest son had done to him. At this, he said, cursed be Canaan, let him become the lowest slave to his brothers. And he added, blessed be Jehovah, Shem's God, and let Canaan become a slave to him. Let God grant ample space to Japheth, and let him reside in the tents of Shem. Let Canaan become a slave to him also. The family head was judge of the family, which included the slaves and all those living under the household of the family head, just as God is the great family head and judge. Genesis 38:24. 38:24. Let's see what it has to say. However, about 3 months later, it happened that it was told to Judah, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot, and here she is also pregnant by her harlotry. At that, Judah said, bring her out and let her be burnt. Violence. Under the law, with the Exodus, Moses as God's representative became judge. Okay, Exodus chapter 18, verse 13 to 26. 26, it says, and it and it came about on the next day that Moses sat down as usual to serve as judge for the people. And the people kept standing before Moses from the morning till the evening. And Moses' father-in-law got to see all that he was doing for the people. So he said, what kind of business is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone continue sitting and all the people continue talking? They stand before you from morning till evening. Then Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people kept coming to me to inquire of God, in the event that they have a case arise, it must come to me and I must judge between the one party and the other. And I must make known the decisions of the true God and his laws. At this, Moses' father-in-law said to him, it is not good the way you are doing it. You would surely wear out both you and these people who are with you, because this business is too big a load for you. You are unable to do it by yourself. Now listen to my voice. I shall advise you, and God will provide to be with you, will prove to be with you, sorry. You yourself serve as representative of the people before the true God, and you yourself must bring the cases to the true God. And you must warn them of what the regulations and the laws are, and you must make known to them the way in which they should walk and the work that they should do. But you yourself should select out of the people capable men, fearing God, trustworthy men, hating unjust prophets. And you must set these over them as chiefs over thousands, chiefs over hundreds, chiefs over fifties, and chiefs over tens. And they must judge the people on every proper occasion. And it must occur that every big case they will bring to you, but every small case they themselves will handle as judges. So make it lighter for yourself, and they must carry the load with you. If you do this very thing, and God has commanded you, you will then certainly be able to stand it. And besides, these people will all come to their own place in peace, Immediately, Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he had said. And Moses proceeded to choose capable men out of all Israel and to give them positions as heads over the people, as chiefs of thousands, chiefs of hundreds, chiefs of fifties, and chiefs of tens. And they judged the people on every proper occasion. A hard case they would bring to Moses, but every small case they themselves would handle as judges. After that, Moses saw his father-in-law off, and he went his way to his land. So, to the question, why was the local court situated at the gate of a city? We have read Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 19, and we came to the question, why was this local court? The answer is in this book called It 1, page 516 to 590, under the subtitle Court Judicial. So in this book, we have the explanation, and the explanation is supported by Bible verses, as you can see in the screen. So now you understand what I'm talking about in this video so far. The Bible verse, the question of that Bible verse, and the explanation. The explanation usually is this long. So to summarize, why was the local court situated? Because simply God is the one who say it. God ordered the local court to be situated at the gate of the city. That should be enough for us. But then he gives us more explanation. For example, in this case, Noah, that received instruction from God. Noah also made decisions in his household that became law in that time. We have seen the case of Judah, in which he determined the penalty for this harlot. And also we have seen Moses. Moses, who acted as a judge to the entire nation of Israel. So we have some examples here, how God instructed humans how judicial system should be handled in the Old Testament. Okay, there's the explanation. I hope you find it useful. Now let's move on to the research that I made on the Bible that you may benefit reading with me. The question is, what spiritual gems from this week's Bible reading would you like to share regarding God, the ministry, or something else? Okay, I'm going to read what I have found interesting. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 15 to 17. It says, no single witness should rise up against a man respecting any error or any sin. In the case of any sin that he may commit, at the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, the matter should stand good. In case a witness scheming violence should rise up against a man to bring a charge of revolt against him, the 2 men who have the dispute must also stand before Jehovah, before the priest and the judges who will be acting in those days. Okay, this is the reason why I find these Bible verses interesting. This command is repeated by Jesus, so still valid nowadays. It is even included in the law of several countries worldwide. Okay? That is why I found that Bible verse relevant, interesting to share with you. Now let's move on to another one. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 18. It says, and the judges must search thoroughly. And if the witness is a false witness and has brought a false charge against his brother, then the history continues. But I focus in verse 18. What is special in verse 18? This Bible verse is not applicable today as in those times Israel as a whole nation of more than 2 million people, that country never had our big system of justice. In that country, there was no distinction between sins and crimes. They were the same as we have the differentiation since more of 100 years till now. Obviously, the judges needed to do investigation because God ordered them to do so. So what is the point here? In those days, God told them, okay, you judge. If you have any doubt or a case is presented, you do research thoroughly. So the judge must carefully investigate everything that has happened, ask witness, any way that you may think of to investigate something. In those days, there was no difference between a crime and a sin. They were both the same. So the judges were responsible for the spiritual welfare of the Israelites and also physical security. That happened more than 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years after, we have that differentiation between a sin and a crime. They are different. They are not the same. Crimes should be dealt by a judge, a prosecutor, and a lawyer, and some other regulations in the country. But a sin is something completely different from a crime. Okay? We don't have spiritual judges nowadays. The only judge that we have now is Jesus. So that is what I've learned from that Bible verse, that it was that in that time that the judges needed to do that research, not now. Let's move on. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1. It says, in case you go out to the battle against your enemies and you actually see horses and war chariots, a people more numerous than you must not be afraid of them. For Jehovah your God is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. If ever I had this such encouraging word coming from God, I can conquer all. I can be the biggest conqueror ever alive. Because God himself is telling me, go and don't be afraid of whatever it happened. Totally encouraging Bible verse. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18 to 21. It says, in case a man happens to have a son who is stubborn and rebellious, he not listening to the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and they have corrected him, but he will not listen to them. His father, his mother must also take hold of him and bring him out to the older men of his city and to the gate of his place. And they must say to the older men of his city, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He's not listening to our voice, being a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his city must pelt him with stones, and he must die. So you must clear away what is bad from your midst, and all Israel will hear and indeed become afraid. We have different opinions talking and commenting about those Bible verses. My opinion would be that it is an appropriate measure, as you don't need to deal with rebellious individuals in the nation. Sadly, it's not, it is not applied in the 21st century unless you live in a Muslim country. Let's move on to another Bible verse. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 22 to 23. 21, 22, and 23. It says, and in case there comes to be in a man a sin deserving the sentence of death, and he has been put to death, and you have hung him up a stake, his dead body should not stay all night on the stake, but you should by all means bury him on that day, because something accused of God is the one hung up, and you must not defile your soil which Jehovah your God is giving you as an inheritance. This prophecy was applied to Jesus sometime later when he was executed. It is interesting that in this verse, the cross is not mentioned, rather a stake, not a cross, a stake, not a cross. Who were the ones who condemned Jesus? The Jews or the Romans? The Romans used the cross to kill criminals, but the Jews and a stake. Just to give you some insight about the execution of Jesus sometime later. Now, we would analyze what I told you before. Apply yourself to the field ministry. How to preach effectively to other people. Let's see. Return visit. We will analyze this return visit. Question: why do we suffer? Of course, you can write down your comments. I would love to read your comments. The only thing that I demand is respect. Even conspiracy theories are allowed. But why do we suffer? So to answer this, I wrote what is in a video. Okay? It says, the video says, from the moment we can talk, we ask questions like, why the sky is blue? What are the stars made of? Why do bad things happen? Where do we come from? Why do people die? People go to great lengths to find the answers. Today, there's more information available than ever before. Nevertheless, the big questions, questions about life, suffering, and death, still remain. The narrator of that answer, which is in a video, if you want access to the video, let me know so I can direct you to that. But the man speaking in that video is a black man. So that is why you hear me like this. Let's continue. Where can we find the answers? But if the answers have been there all along in the Bible, a lot of people say the Bible is full of myths and legends. That's outdated, or just too hard to understand. Nevertheless, is the Bible really the problem? Or is it that what people think they know about the Bible? People think the Bible says that God controls the world. But how could that be? This world is out of control. Okay, it says First John 5:19. It continues with the video. Let's read first. This world's full of pain, suffering, sickness, death, poverty, and disaster. How could a loving God be responsible for all of this? What the Bible says may surprise you. There is an evil power behind the world's problems. First John chapter 5, verse 19. 5:19, it says, we know we originate with God, but the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. The black man continues. Someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes. That is why, no matter how hard we try, we can't solve the world's problem. The good news is, the Bible says things won't always be like this. It tells us why we are in this situation, how God will fix it, and how we can deal with it in the meantime. Okay, that was the message, the video. Living as Christians, walk on your way in safety. What specific things can we do to be safety conscious? First questions. Why should we act safely? Since life is such a precious present from God, safety must be a priority in our daily life. Our organization has a vision to have zero accidents, not just in construction projects, but in our daily lives, whether we are at home, in the road, etc. So, living as Christians is a advice and teachings that we can apply to our daily lives. It says, Acts 17:28, for by him we have life and move and exist, even as certain ones of the poets among you have said, for we are also his progeny. Psalms chapter 36, verse 9. It says, for with you is the source of life, By light from you, we can see light. Okay, so to the question, why should we act safely? We have the answer there, supported by Bible verses. Our attitude towards safety is really a reflection of our spirituality, our love for God and our brothers. Our actions can injure something. We can even become blood guilty, and our problem is overconfidence. We thank God every day we are still alive. As a matter of fact, being alive is simply a miracle every day in 2021. There is a series, 1000 Ways to Die. In the intro of that series, we can see viruses, bacteria, tornadoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, different things that threaten our security, our lives. So in the intro of that TV program, the presenter says, just to be alive is a miracle, with with hundreds and hundreds of thousands ways in which you can die. Not only 1,000, but even more. Okay, now let's move on to this part of the video. Congregation Bible Study. This is a book, Pure Worship of Jehovah Restored at Last, chapter 11. This is a book, Pure Worship of Jehovah. If you want to have access to that book, let me know in the comments so I can direct you to that. So we would analyze, I have appointed you as a watchman. Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 7. So we would analyze paragraph 9 to 17. Again, this is a book, so I'm going to analyze a book from this moment on till the video finishes. So Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 7, let's see what it has to say. It says, now as regards you, O son of man, a watchman is what I have made you to the house of Israel. And at my mouth you must hear the word that I give them, warning from them. How did God display loyal love? This is a question. How did God display loyal love? I forgot the question mark. The Israelites were known as God's people, but they repeatedly turned their backs on him and ran after false gods. God convened the depth of his command, paying at his betrayal by likening the nation to an adulterous wife. Even so, God didn't surrender on them. He sought reconciliation, not revenge. The problem with the Israelites is that they were not constant in their teachings. They were commanded to teach their children the law of God, but they again and again forget to do that. They were focusing many things, not to teach their children about God. Let's read Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 32. It says, in the case of the wife that commits adultery, she takes strangers instead of her own husband. Yeah, so sad. So sad to have a disloyal wife. 33:11. Say to them, as I am alive, is the utterance of the sovereign Lord Jehovah. I take delight, not in the death of the wicked one, but in that someone wicked turns back from his way and actually keeps living. Turn back from your bad ways. For why is that you should die, O house of Israel? This Bible verse, Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 11, is repeated again in the New Testament. So we can see the concern of God towards humans. So always keep this in your head. God's purpose is that you survive, not that you are dead. So you have good reason to always be repentant. If Jesus said you must forgive your brother 77 times, what more can God do to you? But it was a sad situation, isn't it? To have this situation with the Israelites worshiping false idols. Question 10 and 11. What lessons can we learn from God's dealing with his people? One lesson is that we must view the people to whom we preach not as part of a faceless crowd, but as unique individuals. What a mistake it would be to prejudge a person as unworthy of hearing the message we bear because of his past conduct or because of his ethnic, economy, or language background. It is written in the screen so you can take a look of this. So I'm going to read now Acts chapter 10, verse 34 to 35. 34, it says, at this, Peter opened his mouth and said, for a certainty, I perceive that God is not partial, but in every nation, the man that fears him and works righteousness is acceptable to him. It says, what a big mistake it would be to prejudge a person of his past conduct. What about his present conduct? Should we judge people for their present conduct? For example, if you see someone in the street that physically may appear as a man, but is dressed and makeup like a woman, would you approach that person? Because it says his past conduct. What about his present conduct? Gross sinners deserve that we approach or not? Or should we maintain our distance? And it says here, because of his ethnic, economic, or language background. You know, I studied English as a foreign language. And once I wrote an essay, I love writing, by the way. In all my exams of learning English, my high score was in writing. And I once wrote what is in the screen, background. And my teacher told me, never use the word background. It's really inappropriate, highly inappropriate to even mention the word background. Perhaps in your country, it's pretty normal to use the word background. But in English-speaking countries, not so much. So try to avoid using the word background. They ignore it here in this book. Question 12. If we committed serious sins in the past, what should we remember? From Ezekiel's message, we learn that God will punish unrepentant wrongdoers. Nevertheless, we also learn that God is primarily a God of love, not vengeance. Let's read what First John 4:8 has to say. Oh, First John 4:8 is talking about a God is love. Huh? Yeah, I know that by memory. God is love. Okay. If we prove by our actions that we are repentant, we should never feel that our sins are beyond God's mercy. Let's read James chapter 5, verse 14 to 15. Is there anyone sick among you? Let him call the older men of the congregation to him, and let them pray over him, greasing him with oil in the name of Jehovah. And the prayer of faith will make the indisposed one well, and Jehovah will raise him up. Also, if he has committed sins, it will be forgiven him. Okay, many people try to use this verse to justify that we are required to go to the older men. Okay, um, it says there, let him call the older men. Not that someone should accuse him to the older men. No, 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 no. It says, let him call. Allow him to call. So if you really are sick, you should go to the older men, to the elders. Not that some people are accusing you or some people are harassing you. Out of the question. The Bible verse says, let him, allowed him to have the elders. If you really decide by yourself that you don't want any spiritual treatment, is your right. No one is to force you. Okay? And let's read Psalm chapter 86, verse 5. It says, for you, O Jehovah, are good and ready to forgive, and the loving kindness to all those calling upon you is abundant. Nice, isn't it? Speak to the sons of your people. Question 13 and 14. What sort of message were the watchmen to declare? Question B. What message did Isaiah deliver? A vital part of their work was to proclaim warning, but they also delivered good news. Consider some examples. Isaiah, who served from about 778 to 732 before Common Era, warned that the Babylonians would capture Jerusalem and take its inhabitants into exile. Before Common Era is before Christ. Let's read Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 2 to 3. It says, Son of man, speak to the sons of your people, and you must say to them, as regards a land, in case I bring upon it a sword, and the people of the land, one and all, actually take a man and set him as their watchman, and he really sees the sword coming upon the land and blows the horn and warns the people. We have also in the army people working like that, isn't it? In watchtowers. Isaiah chapter 39, verse 5 to 7. Let's read. Isaiah now said to Hezekiah, "Hear the word of Jehovah of armies. Look, days are coming, and all that is in your own house and that your forefathers have stored up down to this day will actually be carried to Babylon. Nothing will be left, Jehovah has said. And some of your own sons that will come forth from you, to whom you will become father, will themselves be taken," and actually became court officials in the palace of the king of Babylon. And finally, Isaiah chapter 52, verse 8. It says, "Listen, your own watchmen have raised their voice. In unison, they keep crying out joyfully, for it will be eye into eye that they will see when Jehovah gathers back Zion." 15. What message did Jeremiah proclaim? Jeremiah, who served from 647 to 580 BCE, is often unjustly labeled a calamity hauler. Without a doubt, he did an outstanding job of warning the wicked Israelites of the calamities that God would bring on them. But he also proclaimed good news, foretelling the return of God's people to their land and the restoration of pure worship there. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 10 to 14. So we see now the purpose of having this watchman. Okay, now we see the message. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 10, it says, "For this is what Jehovah has said, in accord with the fulfilling of 70 years at Babylon, I shall turn my attention to you people, and I will establish toward you my God, my good word in bringing you back to this place. For I myself well know the thoughts that I'm thinking toward you is the utterance of Jehovah, thoughts of peace and not of calamity, to give you a future and a hope. And you would certainly call me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will actually seek me and find me, for you will search for me with all your heart. And I will let myself be found by you, is the utterance of Jehovah. And I will gather your body of captives and collect you together out of all the nations and out of all the places to which I have dispersed you, is the utterance of Jehovah. And I will bring you back to the place from which I caused you to go into exile." Now, Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 10 to 11. It says, "This is what Jehovah has said. In this place that you people will be saying is waste without man and without domestic animal in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem that are desolated, without man and without inhabitant and without domestic animal, there will yet be heard the sound of exultation and the sound of rejoicing, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the voice of those saying, 'Loud Jehovah of armies.' For Jehovah is good, for to time indefinitely is his loving kindness. They will be bringing a thanksgiving offering into the house of Jehovah. For I shall bring back the captives of the land, just as the start, Jehovah has said. Okay, that is the answer to these questions. The slaves. Question 16. How did Ezekiel's message benefit the captives in Babylon? Ezekiel was appointed as a watchman in 613 BCE before Common Era, and he remained at his post at least until 591 before Common Era. Ezekiel zealously warned the people of Israel of the destruction that would descend on them, clearing himself of any blood guilt for the lives that would be lost. In the process, he not only warned the exiles that Jehovah would punish apostates in Jerusalem, nevertheless also helped to keep the captives in Babylon spiritually alive and fit for future work. At the end of the 70 years exile, God would plant a remnant in the restored land of Israel. Now, let's read Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 7 to 11. It says, therefore, this is what but the sovereign Lord Jehovah has said. I myself have raised my hand in an oath that the nations that you have round about, they themselves will bear their own humiliation. And you yourselves, all mountains of Israel, will give forth your very own boss and bear your own fruitage for my people Israel, for they have drawn near to me to the point of coming in. For here I am in favor of you, and I shall certainly turn toward you, and you will actually be cultivated and sown with seed, and I will multiply upon you humankind, the whole house of Israel, all of it, and the cities must become inhabited, and the devastated places themselves will be rebuilt. Yes, I will multiply upon you humankind and animal kind, and they will certainly multiply and become fruitful, and I shall actually cause you to be inhabited as in your former condition, and I will do more good than in your initial state, and you will have to know that I am Jehovah. Everything good, but I don't think that apostate should be mentioned. Where is apostates? Okay. In the process, he not only warned the exiles that Jehovah would punish apostates in Jerusalem. They are confusing the terms in this book, the writers. What is an apostate? An apostate is a person that leaves a religious or political party. Well, religion is not a part. Well, it can be called. It's the person that just leaves, doesn't belong to that organization anymore. That is the only meaning of the word apostate. But in this book, the word apostate is repeated and repeated again, and they don't even know the real meaning of the word. The real meaning of the word is in the dictionary. Have a look at it. Unless you want to change words. I made a video, but it's in Spanish about words in this channel, so you can check it out about how words are changed for the benefit of the philosophy of the religion or the political party. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And as always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.